Hi again! It's me again. I said I would upload another video, but shit. I was gonna upload a video about Cinematic Angels, yeah, and basic info on that. At, let's say 7, because I'm lazy. At about 7 o'clock, I went to go see At World's End, and god damn, that is a fantastic movie. It's the final of the trilogy, for the Cornetto trilogy. I think that's what it's called, yeah, the Cornetto trilogy, which is a series of movies. I think they're all written by Edgar Wright, but I'm not sure, and I know they all feature Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, who are both fantastic actors, they're fantastic comedians, and they're fucking British. And that makes me so happy, because I'm British, and they're fucking awesome. And Simon Pegg is in it, and Nick Frost is in it, and I'm so fucking happy, and fucking Martin Freeman's in it. Is that his name? It's 5 a.m., please don't judge. I loved it. It's a fantastic movie, it was a very funny movie. Simon Pegg, Nick Frost, fantastic as always. They're great comedians, they always make me laugh. The movie is about a man named Gary King, who is played by Simon Pegg, and in his past he had 4 friends, whose names I can't remember. I think one of them is named Andy. There's Peter. Is one of them called Simon? And the other one's called Oliver. I cannot remember their names. I'm so sorry. This is a shitty review. But yeah, that's their names. I think. That's what I'm gonna call them anyway. Harry and his friends, when they were younger, lived in a town, which sounds, Newton Haven, I think that's what it's called, but the entire time through that entire fucking movie, all I would hear was Mutant Haven, so that's what I'm gonna call it. They lived there, and there's this thing called a pub crawl, and they call it the Golden Mile. And they decided to go on the Golden Mile, which is 12 pubs in one night. You have a pint in each pub. And it's good fun. I've never done it because I'm underage, but it's good fun, apparently. But yeah, they go on this pub crawl, and they don't manage to finish it. And Gary King, who's the protagonist, played by Simon Pegg, as I've mentioned before, he, in his later years, but I think 20 years later, he decides he wants to do it. So he decides to get all of his friends together. And that's a bit of a struggle in the beginning. Oliver has become a real estate agent. Another one's become a building contractor, I think. Nick Frost is a lawyer. Can't remember what Peter becomes. But yeah. And Gary King goes to all of them and goes, oh, no, this is what's gonna happen. And to each and every one of them, he tells them, oh, no, yeah, I got Andy to agree, so now you have to come. And it's like, what? Why would Andy agree to that? But hey, he did, so I guess I'll show up. He hasn't gotten Andy to agree. So he goes to Andy last after he's told everyone that Andy's gonna come. And then he realizes, shit, I need to make sure Andy comes. So, what he does is he then tries to convince Andy to come by telling him his mother died, and that's why he wants to do this. His mother's not. They all go, and he's got the same car, and they're going back to the thing, and it's cool, it's going great. No one's having fun except Gary. And then they get to, I think, pub 4, and something happens. Gary gets into trouble because Peter meets the guy who he used to bully, and they're all having a heartfelt moment, and Peter's like, oh no, what makes it even worse is after all this time he didn't remember me, and he's really sad. And Gary shows up and slams like 5 shots on the table and goes, shots! Everyone's like, what? We're having a moment here. Why aren't you having a moment with us? And he's like, but shots! They're like, oh no, let's go home, let's leave. Gary's like, oh no, but wait, all the buses are gone, so you can't leave. And then they're like, oh no, whatever, we'll just go to the, where we're staying, and we'll go there and we'll have a sleep. And Gary's like, fine, whatever, I wanna go to the bathroom. And he leaves his phone on the table. Guess who calls Gary's phone? His fucking mother. And Andy picks up, and Andy's like, you little shit. Gary, this other kid comes in, this little kid that they've seen walking down the street once or twice, walks in, and he just completely ignores Gary, and Gary's like, oh no, look, I used to live here, I made that hole in the wall. And he's like, oh, I'm doing the Golden Mile. And the kid just doesn't answer him. So Gary's like, hey, I'm talking to you, and grabs him. And the kid's like, don't do that. Like, in a, like, robotic noise. And that's the moment you're like, shit is gonna go down. So, shit goes down. The kid attacks him. And it's just like, what the fuck? What is wrong with this kid? And there's a fight. And eventually, the kid's head comes off. And all you see is blue. She's like, what the fuck? What is this? The kid's like a fucking robot. And Gary's like freaking out because it's like, what the fuck? This kid's head's lying on the floor. And it's still moving. It's like, what? And then Gary's friends come in. And Andy's just like, you fucking liar! Meh, 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 meh. Like, completely ignoring the fact that there's a, like, Gary's, like, holding, like, a decapitated kid, and there's blue shit coming out of the top of the kid's, where the severing should be. And the kid's head's on the floor, and he's completely ignoring it until the fucking body starts moving. Then the kid's friends come in, and there's a big fight scene between them. And it's pretty fucking cool. And they leave, and they decide, Gary goes, oh, no, wait, what we should do is make sure they don't know that we know. So we're going to continue on this pub crawl, because we've told everyone that we're going to do it. We might as well keep doing it, just to keep up with appearances. And, 2 bars later, the real estate agent dude, his sister shows up, and she's mentioned in passing. Gary and her had a thing in the disabled room. She shows up. That happens. And there's a fight. And she's just like, no, I'm not gonna have sex with you. Because, like, obviously she doesn't want to have sex with him, etc., etc. And Gary gets mad. And then they leave. And she goes off to meet these 2 twins. And then they meet her again in pub 6. And she's met up with the twins. And they're like, oh, shit. They could be robots. So Gary, like, freaks out and drags her away. And then tells her that, like, oh no, it's this whole town has possibly been replaced by robots. And then she obviously doesn't believe him, and she goes outside. The twins are robots. And they deal with them, and Sam decides to continue on with them. Then they get to pub 7. There's a scene between him and Martin, where Martin had a birthmark. He had it laser removed. Like, there's a scene between him and Andy, where he's going, oh, Andy, hurry up, like, we can't start without you. And then it just cuts to him, and Andy's looking at him, and the 6 is there. It's like, what the fuck? That wasn't there before. Oliver's a robot now. Because they make completely fresh copies of you. That birthmark was there. So yeah. And shit goes down there. It's like a dance thing, and then they get to pub 8? Yes, I'm gonna say pub 8. Yeah, they get there. And then it's revealed that Oliver is in fact a blank. And that's what they've decided to call it, blanks, because they make completely blank copies of you. And they meet, I think it's their road principal. And he's also a blank. Like, pretty much everyone is a blank, and if you're not a blank, you've been replicated. But yeah, and they all freak out, because I think it's Andy that lobs Oliver's head off when they figure out that he's a blank, and they run. And then shit goes down in the forest, and Peter's taken. And then Sam's already fucked off, by the way. Greg put her in her car and told her to leave. So Sam's gone. Sam's safe. Yep. Oh, no, yes, and before that, before Peter gets taken, this happens after Sam's drove away. So they're all in this, it's like a golf course thing, and they go through, like, oh, well, if they make complete blank copies of you, then you don't have your scars. So let's prove it. And, Simon has a scar on his butt. Peter has a scar on his leg. Andy has a scar on his finger that he shows. And they get to Gary, and they're just like, oh, no, hold on. You might be a blank. And he's like, no, I'm not. Look, I've got this tattoo on my chest. There's no way I would have a tattoo. And Peter's like, no, wait, that could have been drawn on. And he's like, sure. Automatically, Gary's like, fuck no. So you know some shit has gone down that he doesn't want them to see. Eventually, what he does to prove it to them that he's him is he bangs his head repeatedly on a post. And he's just like, how? If it wasn't me, that wouldn't hurt. And he goes, ow! And they're like, yeah, it's scary, because he's doing something stupid. And they take refuge inside of, I'm going to say bar 10. and they decide, okay, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go get the beast, and then we're gonna leave because they want us to become one of them. And essentially, what happens is Gary goes, well, fuck this, and he runs away. Simon is like, well, fuck that, and what he does is he goes to get the beast, and Andy chases after Gary, and they go through bar 11, and Gary drinks the pint, and then runs over to the World's End, which is the last one. They get to there. There's a big fight scene where you hear about I think Gary's meant to be in rehab. I'm not sure. I know they mention they tell him when to go to bed, and you find out he's got bandages wrapped around his wrist. He's got I think it's a hospital band on his arm. I'm not sure though. I didn't quite catch that because I was like, oh, what the fuck, through the whole thing. So, yeah, and you find out that, and then, Gary's like completely determined to finish this. He's like, oh, you got the nice life. This is all I want. This is what I want. I have to finish this. And Gary flips a switch, I think, to get the last beer while he's fighting with Andy. And the floor descends. And you go down to the bottom and you find out, hey, it is aliens. Yeah, and shit happens and stuff. But yeah, and Gary's like, well, fuck that. And they give him like options, like, oh no, look, you could be like your younger self. It'll be fantastic. You'll look young. You'll act young. You can do whatever the fuck you want. And Gary's like, nah. And there's a argument where the line, to is to human, comes in, which I really like. I know it's not specifically from the movie, but I cannot remember off the top of my head where it's from. But yeah, and then that happens, and then the aliens just basically go, well, there's no point in arguing with you like at the end of the argument, they just go, well, there's no point in arguing with you, and they just fuck off. And at that point, Simon's like descended from the ceiling, so it's like, well, there's three of us, there's the three musketeers. The aliens fuck off, but what they've done is they basically furthered Earth, like, you know, like all the electronics and shit. That was all them. And then they managed to get back up. Like, well, shit, what do we do? This whole fucking place is burning down. We need to run. And Sam shows up, and she's like, well, I got lost, so I came back. And they, the three of them get in the car with Sam, and they have to run from like this massive explosion. And the thing explodes, and they're sitting, and it cuts to like them sitting on the hill that's mentioned in the very first scene. And then it continues on about, I think it's 6 months later, and it tells you what happened to them. The blanks just like woke up, and it's like it said they were like children without parents, and they tried to rehabilitate them, and it kind of worked. Oliver got his job back in real estate, and he just kept working, even though he's not got a top half of his head. It's from here up, it's completely gone. Simon now lives with Sam in the outskirts of London, I believe, and that's my OTP because they're really cute. Sam and Simon. And Peter lives with his family. Andy got back together with his wife, and his 2 kids are living with him and his wife now, and he's telling this story to a couple of kids at a campfire thing, and they're like, oh, what happened to Gary? And he's like, I don't know what happened to Gary. So it cuts to Gary, and he's now traveling with 4 blanks, and it cuts to him, and he's got and he goes to a pub that says no blanks allowed, and he takes off the sign and throws it in. He's just like, whatever. So he walks in, and he does the same speech that he did at the beginning, except he asks for 5 tap waters instead, because he's given up drinking. So he asks for 5 tap waters, and and the dude's like, well, I'll serve you, but I will not serve your blanks. And he's like, oh, well, and then he explains it again. He's like, so I will ask you again, 5 tap waters, please. He's like, fuck no. And Gary it turns into this weird thing where everyone draws guns and knives and shit, and the 4 blanks whip out their weapons, and Gary fucking whips out a sword from over his back, and he's like, 5 tap waters. And then it preludes to, obviously there's a fight, and then it ends. And that's the end of the movie. And let me tell you, it's a pretty fucking awesome movie. It's a great ending to the Cornetto trilogy, even though it's not really a connected trilogy, but it's really fucking good, and I highly recommend it, and this is my scatterbrain review. Expect more of these whenever the fuck I get around to watching movies again. Have a nice night, and have a great Saturday, if it gets uploaded on